Bomber Thompson was the coach, that sort of told him, he needed to change the way he did things, and they made some, decent changes. But the thing was, they had a good list of players there. And then in 2007, they didn't start the year well. I'm trying to recall it now. I reckon they might have won 2 out of their first 5 games, and then I can remember there was sort of a watershed moment after a match. They were all locked in the rooms. I was in there with them, and they just big, honest, open, frank discussion about things, and whether this was the catalyst for things turning around or not, it's hard to know. But after that, they barely lost a game for the rest of the year, and all of a sudden things just clicked.
Wow. So what was involved in that sort of conversation, if you can recall?
Yeah.
What happened behind closed doors that really shifted the gears to go like, hang on, we're a real shot here. We need to just believe and go to that next level.
Yeah, I think that it was just.
That's actually the first time it's ever happened. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. And welcome to another episode of Going Pro. So today we have a special guest who has a wealth of experience. Duncan Kellaway, you have played 180 games for Richmond Football Club between 1993 and 2004. You have 20 years of experience as a physio. You've worked as a physiotherapist and runner at the Geelong Football Club in the 2007, 2009 and 2011 premierships. Currently, you are the Adelaide Crows rehab physio, helping players plan and manage their return from injury. And lastly, and of course, most importantly, you're a husband and father of 4 children. So welcome. Thank you for making time to be with us here today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So I want to get straight into 1990s football. Now, almost 200 games for Richmond. I think you're certainly qualified to tell us about what it was like in the 90s and the difference between, I guess, football in the 90s and football to today, and I guess what you're seeing between young footballers then and now.
Yeah, vastly different. When I started, it was semi-professional, so all the players were either studying or working. I think guys were on flexi hours, but generally it was the odd early morning session and then training at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, a bit like SNFL footy is now, really. Mid-90s it started to change, and they started having main training sessions during the day, and then it happened quite quickly. It went fully professional, but no one really knew what fully professional looked like in those days. It was a bit of a learning curve. Okay, we've got these guys full time. How do we use the time? And I think to start with, there was a lot of probably wasted hours where they just knew they had you in their hands and you were meant to be there, but they weren't quite sure what to do with you. But I think the training, like always, we trained hard when we were semi-professional, and then when we were professional, they started delving into more of the areas of recovery and the captain's runs they have now, and all these sort of things they brought into the program. It was a bit of a learning curve, sort of how to bring that in. As far as the football goes, I think it was a really good era of football. Sort of a lot of the 90s, the game sort of was quite free flowing. It was a lot of one-on-one, man-on-man football. And I think it was generally quite good to watch. And again, as the game's evolved, the defensive strategies have got better and better. So sometimes the game's been a bit hard to watch at times when it's been so defensive and so many people around the ball. So in the regard of the standard of football, I think it was a good era to play.
Yeah, I also think the rules have made it harder to play that free-flowing type of football. I think with so many rule changes, it has made it hard. Was there something in that mid-90s that actually shifted it to becoming professional? What was that shift from going semi-professional to becoming professional?
I think a lot of it probably came down to finances. Sort of all of a sudden the broadcasting rights and things like that were delivering the AFL a lot of money, so there was more money going into the clubs and football departments and players. So it got to the point where okay, we're paying guys this much, they should be full time. So I think that was largely the reason for it. So it sort of evolved, I think, on the back of the game being sort of more commercialised and more money coming into the game, and following the American sport and the soccer and other things like that. So I think that was what sort of brought on the full time status.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes complete sense. And it's same in all sports. When there's advertising and marketing and more money pumped in, then it can actually become more of a proper profession for people. So how did it actually change from, I guess, the mid-90s to the back end of your career in 2004 when you retired? How did the training and, I guess, the professionalism start to change and look from, I guess, that later 90s to early 2000s?
I guess like I said, the programs probably changed a bit, sort of what they were doing with you. There was, the expectation away from the football club that you look after yourself better. That was probably a big thing, and that took a lot of time, because football, typically you played, you trained hard, you played hard, but then most of the guys went out and partied hard as well and enjoyed themselves. And I think the expectation changed a little bit about what you were doing away from the club as well. So that was probably a big part of it. Like I said, generally it was you did the right thing at the club, and then you're free to do what you wanted away from the club. But the combination of being full-time professional and also mobile phones coming in and social media and all those sort of things changed what happened away from the football club as well.
That would have been a real mindset and culture shift as well, if you're just used to being free and then able to party, and then the expectation is you got to kind of keep a leash on it, where a lot of guys not happy with that and wanted to just let them be free to do whatever they wanted.
Yeah, I think some people made that transition easier than others. In general, my theory was, especially coming from that era, that it didn't worry me if guys partied hard, but then they came, they did the training they were meant to, and they did it at the standard they were meant to. Then I was happy with that. It was the guys who would go out, have a big weekend, and then whinge and moan and wouldn't train properly sort of during the week. Then you say, no, that's not on. We've moved on from that.
Especially in a team sport, when you all need each other to perform, and if one person lets down, I guess, the back line, and that can have a ripple effect to the whole back line, and then things can fall apart, and then tensions can rise. And
the old saying, the chain's only as strong as the weakest link. So you want everyone sort of up to scratch and doing the right thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Were there any distinct memories that you look back on your career, I guess, like super positive or even like painful ones, that still stand out to you to this day that you think back on?
I guess a few big memories from my playing career. My first game, it took a while. I went from the under-19s, and the norm was, it was back under-19s and then reserves, seniors. You went through that sort of pathway back then, and I was doing well in the under-19s, but then I had some injury troubles, and so it took me longer. I didn't sort of play AFL, play seniors until I was 20. I was hoping to play a year or so earlier than that, but so I still remember my first game, a big thing to get the call up and play. It was about the MCG. It wasn't an overly big crowd. It was 30-odd thousand against St Kilda, but just remember running onto the MCG and the noise, sort of when you're used to playing in front of a few hundred people, and just how loud the crowd was, and actually being out there and sort of achieving your dream that you always wanted to do. So that was all a big thing and great to look back on. I was lucky enough sort of in my third year to get chosen when they used to have State of Origin to play for Victoria. And it was MCG, but Ted Whitten, who was the legend of Victorian football and State of Origin, he was really sick with cancer that day, but he sort of got off his deathbed and came into the rooms and did a lap of honour. So I've still I really remember sort of shaking hands and chatting to him before the game, and being lucky enough to play with Gary Ablett Senior and Gary Lyon, all these legends of the game. So that was a real buzz about to play in that. And I'm just trying. Probably the things I look back on, not normally fond memories, but in the end, I had a lot of injuries towards the end of my career. So that was a big thing in sort of shaping your character and things like that as well, being able to deal with them and then try to get through them and get back to playing. So
what were those injuries and how did you manage them at that time?
Yeah, so like early on, but when I was just missing games at the start, I had like a syndesmosis, high ankle injury when I was sort of getting very close to playing senior, so that sort of put me out for 6 weeks or so, and then I had a run of hamstrings or recurrent hamstring injuries, but then I had a really good run, and then out of the blue, someone fell on my knee and I did my ACL on my left knee, so I missed the rest of that year. I came back quite quickly and played a full year the next year, and then halfway through the following year I did my other ACL. So, and then after that I struggled a bit. I came back, I had a lot of soft tissue injuries and things like that. So yeah, it's sort of, it toughens you up a bit having to deal with those things.
Was that quite new at that time, I guess, the awareness around the ACL injury? Because that's become huge and so prominent now, especially in contact sports with AFL, when there's just, you're getting hit from different angles all the time. What was, I guess, the understanding of the ACL injury, and what was the recovery process?
The reconstruction sort of probably becoming quite common in the 90s. Before that, the technique, surgical technique, and all the recovery was quite different and very conservative. They used to put people in plaster and all sorts of things. So that it was in probably the mid 90s that they were getting really aggressive and trying to push the boundary. So it seemed almost to be a race who could get back the quickest. So you've got the odd bloke who came back in 5 months or so, but then they were getting a lot of failures as well with the reconstruction. So it was sort of a time when they were pushing the boundaries a bit with it actually, and so now they seem they know a lot more sort of about really how to go about the rehab and timeframes and things like that, whereas they were just sort of experimenting probably a little bit more back then.
Yeah, I think there would have been a lot of experimentation to figure out kind of, I guess, how you do play with this injury. Today's podcast sponsor is Electric Road Agency, who were formerly 4RT. Now, if you want a team of strategists, designers, producers, creators who drive stories to tell your advertising and marketing needs, these guys are the best in the business. They've been extremely influential for us at ATA. They've driven our media game forward to new levels that we never knew that were possible. And they've done it with countless brands, big, small, it doesn't matter what the size, they just love telling your story. So they specialize in health, wellness, fitness, tourism, construction, and they are just the best in the business in creating adaptive solutions to find how to tell your brand or how to discover your brand and tell that story. So highly, highly, highly recommend these guys. And if you want to get in touch, please go on electricroad.au or search the Instagram handle Electric Road Agency, and they will answer your email, your call, your DM, and they'll be in touch and they'll be able to tell your story very well. One thing I wanted to ask you was, from an extended career like that, what were some of the key lessons and learnings? Because you've had a lot of time to reflect from your career. What are some of the learnings that you still think have helped you to this day to be the man that you are now?
Well, let me see. That's tough. I guess a few things. Persistence is probably a big thing to learn. You don't always get what you want straight away. And that I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's nice to have to work for things, and often it's much sweeter when you achieve things when it takes a bit of hard work and you get a few setbacks along the way. So, just being prepared to push and persist and make your way rather than just have it come to you nice and easily. Hard work. There's no doubt hard works. It's basic. It's nothing groundbreaking, but generally, you work hard, you do the right thing, work hard, work smart, you're more likely to achieve things in sport, and that probably goes for most of life as well. Just to, you often see the guys, they go out there and they play well on the weekend and everyone says how talented they are, but when you're in the background you see how hard they actually work on their game. So, whether that's football, tennis, any sort of sport, I think that applies.
Yeah, it's true. It's like, there's no real secret. It's that hard work, but the guys that can do it over a really long period are the ones that are going to achieve those higher levels. And you would have saw that with teammates and people around in different teams in the AFL at that time. Yeah,
there's undoubtedly some guys who can sustain that and have the mental strength to just be able to keep pushing along, doing the hard work. Others, you can see they have the period where they work hard and they enjoy some success, and then for whatever reason they drop away, and often their careers drop away when they forget where they've come from and what they've been doing to achieve their success.
Yeah, for sure. I think that separates the good from the great, the ones that can do that over the long course. So one thing that we're passionate about is really that transition from being a professional to having a career and life after sport, especially in a sport like tennis where it's almost impossible to become a financially successful athlete. You've got to be in the top 100, otherwise you're not making any money. And I guess we see a lot of stories where guys put all of their energy in their early 20s to become professional, and they only maybe get to 500 in the world, and then they hit like 25, 26, 27, and they haven't really thought about what's next for them. So you said earlier that before it was professional, you were kind of studying and doing that. So did you always have a plan for your career after footy, or were you just studying on the side just to do something to have a backup? What was that process and transition for you, life after footy?
Yeah, so I guess study-wise, I went from school, and I did reasonably well at school, so the plan was to go to uni, and back then when footy was part-time, that was easy to do, so I decided on physio. There was, like a lot of people like sport, you're attracted to the sort of sports physio side of it, which unfortunately a lot of people don't get into that area, but I've been lucky enough to get into that area, so decided to do physio, and I probably was very lucky that I was able to finish the degree before footy went full time. So
yes. Okay.
If I was a year or two later, and I've seen a lot of guys come into the football sort of in latter years as mature age recruits who've done 1 or 2 years of physio who haven't been able to finish the degree. So I was lucky I was able to get through the degree. And then I've always quite enjoyed when I was playing, doing some work as well. So I was able to, early days when there was more scope to work, I worked 20 odd hours a week, and then even when I was full time, I was generally able to work sort of 6 to 8 hours a week, just something to keep things ticking along.
So you were working as a physio while you were playing?
Yes, yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah,
okay.
so pretty much my whole career, except maybe a couple of years, I went back to uni and I did an MBA as well. So I was doing an MBA part time, and I got a bit slack and stopped doing my physio work for a couple of years. But in general, I just kept doing some work the whole way through. And for me, I enjoyed having something else to think about and something else to do. And at times when you've got injuries or your form's not so good, it's good just to have a bit of perspective and have some stuff outside of football that you're doing.
Yeah, that's really true. I was thinking that what a good outlet for you at that time to do something different, to put your energy into just helping other people and having a completely different mindset and zone to be in outside of footy. It almost would have complemented footy in a way.
Yeah, I found when I was busy sort of having a bit of work and this and that, you were able to get quite a good routine going, and you actually you did all the stuff you needed to do, and you found you sort of work quite hard, whereas sometimes if you didn't have those things to do, you end up sitting on the couch, and you can tend to get a little bit lazy at times. So it just kept things moving, gave me some other things to think about, and it was a good mix for me.
Otherwise, you just caught thinking about and spending too much time thinking about form and whether you're doing well or whether it's like you're in a bad zone.
Yeah, you seem to know that with the players today, they don't have as much going on outside their football. So when football is such a huge focus for them, it can be quite tricky and hard to deal with if things aren't going well or they've got issues with their game all of a sudden.
Do you think that's an issue for footballers now, just not having a proper career pathway? Is the AFL or are people implementing anything to have something outside of footy, or how does that work now?
Yeah, well, they try. There's the Players Association, which helps. There's every club's got their player welfare officers, so there's things in place, but there's still probably a large proportion of players who finish their career and unsure what's next and what they're going to do. And some, if they've played a long career, then financially they're in a good position. They've got time and it's not as stressful. But someone has had 4 years in the system and gets spat out, and they haven't done a degree or they haven't done an apprenticeship or whatever it might be, then it can be a a bit tricky for them. So I think it's it's important that the AFLPA and the AFL and the clubs just keep working towards sort of getting players geared up for what they're going to do when they finish playing.
I think also having good people around you would help kind of, I guess, make rational, good decisions about a pathway. Did you have people in your life, like family members or other people close to you, that helped you think about this a little bit more?
Well, I definitely had people who around me who kept you down to earth, and just so there was no sort of there was no getting ahead of yourself and thinking how well things are going, and then you're not thinking about other parts of your life and what you're going to have to be doing and working. So family was really good in that regard, and friends as well. So I had no sort of specific mentors or as such, which a lot of the players do now, which is I think is a good thing. A lot of them sort of develop quite close relationships with successful business people who help them when they finish playing, whether it's working for them or sort of setting them in the right direction.
Yeah, because you see that now with players almost using business people or having agents to market themselves to have a career in, like, I guess, like the broadcasting space, advertising space, or like almost becoming a personal brand and being almost entrepreneurial in a way. And with the extra finances that they get, they can actually invest in people who are super successful to actually help them with that.
Yeah. And again, there's sort of, it's one of those things. If you're a successful player, you've probably got more doors open to you. It's a bit trickier for those ones who, career never really take off, but they dedicate 4 or 5 years to it and miss out on whatever work experience or education they might have otherwise got. That's sort of that tricky area.
For sure. As a physio, you would have learnt so much about the body and injuries and, I guess, common patterns of injuries that you see in the AFL. Do you have any, advice or do anything differently in your early stages of your career now with what you know now?
Yeah, I guess when I had some injuries, I was probably a bit too aggressive and keen to get back. So I probably needed to listen to the experts a bit more than I did. I thought I was studying physio and I probably knew more than I actually did. So you got to listen to the experts who've got the experience and know what they're doing. That'd probably be a key one.
And what's important with the recovery process? So after post-trainings, after games, what do you think athletes really need to put themselves in a position where they can really move and be athletic at a high level consistently? Because you guys, at an AFL level, are backing it up all the time.
Yes. Well, there's sort of the basics, the meat and 3 veg sort of things are your nutrition and sleep, are the big things. So there's all little things you can add on top of that, but the most important ones, you sleep well, you recover well with your sleep, and 2, you get the right food and nutrition into you. So they're the basic things you have to do first, and then you've got all the other modalities on top of it. So at the footy club now, there's Normatec compression garments that the players use regularly.
They're awesome.
I've
used the Normatec. They actually work really well.
Yeah, the players love them. So they use them. There's the hot-cold transitions. There's your basic just mobility work in the pool. They've also invested in a couple of infrared saunas as well, which there's a little bit of evidence behind them, sort of helping out with recovery and your immune system. So I think you do the basic things first. You make sure you sleep well. You make sure you get the appropriate nutrition in, and then you've got the modalities you can use on top of that to just give you that little bit of an edge as well. Yeah,
the sleep and nutrition are the big pillars, and then those other things are going to really add on top of that. Because you see in so many sports now just that protocol of just like spin bike after, or like the Normatecs, the compression. The sauna, the hot cold has become massive.
Over the years, I've seen so many things. So things become trendy, and then they can sort of go out of fashion. But like I said, you got your basic sleep and nutrition first, and then those other areas can give you a little bit of an edge. Some there's some evidence behind it. There's some placebo with it as well, I'm sure. But it's
What have you seen come and gone? And do you think some of these things are here to stay in terms of just like hot, cold? I think about hot, cold and sauna being here to stay at a professional level across all sports.
Yeah, so hot colds came in when I was playing. All of a sudden, that we were going off our heads, like we weren't getting told to get into these ice baths and things like that. It was a shock to the system. But yeah, they've sort of stood the test of time. They've sort of been around for a while now. The saunas are a later sort of thing that people got into. You even got all the the Theraguns and the self massage sort of things as well now, which players use. So. And again, I'm sort of no expert on recovery, but there's different theories and about periodising your recovery and things like that. So often in pre-season, the players are told not to use recovery modalities at times. Okay, so I was saying sort of stewing your juices. You just you work hard and your body just has to adapt and recover. And then once they get sort of into more the home and away season, then they hit them harder with the recovery techniques and hopefully get sort of more bang for your buck there.
Is the intention behind that to be able to maintain and handle the stress overload of what you are experiencing on match day?
Yeah, that's definitely part of it, and then I think part of it is to try to get a better adaptive response to your training as well. So you do the hard training, you let your body recover and get the benefits from the training. And then once you're getting into the season, that's not so much about getting the physiological benefits from the training. It's more about getting the work in and then recovering well, getting ready for the next session for the game coming up.
What are common injuries that you're seeing? Obviously, like there's the ACL and just the MCL, all of that sort of stuff. But what are some of the common things that you're seeing, and what protocols do you use to help manage some of these injuries?
I guess as far as AFL injuries go, the biggest cause of games lost is pretty much hamstring injuries every year. So sort of to try to, as a preventative tool, there's the strengthening exercises. So the most sports or with sprinting and stuff now use Nordics or eccentric hamstring strengthening has shown good evidence as a injury prevention tool for hamstring strains.
Yep. Can you explain the Nordic? Because I've just started getting into them recently in the last year, and they are brutal and they help a lot. I feel like the hamstring strength for me personally has increased a lot. So can you explain a little bit more about why the Nordic and just more about that exercise in general and what sort of results you're seeing? Yeah,
so the Nordic sort of you're kneeling, someone holding your feet down, and basically you're keeping your thighs and trunk in line, and you're letting your body fall forward, and your hamstrings are lengthening to control the movement. So it's a strong hamstring eccentric contraction, sort of over the knee. So you're working over the knee. So the theory is you're getting stronger in a longer position. Okay, which is when you're sprinting, your hamstrings are in a long position. So you're trying to
like strength through length of the hamstring.
Yeah, so sort of longer and stronger the theory. There's some people who've got issues with the Nordic because it's working over the knee rather than the hip, but our general protocol is we'll do strengthening work sort of both over the knee and over the hip, and we'll include different contraction types. So there'll be eccentric and isometric are the two we probably concentrate on the most, more so than the concentric element. So it's all about making the muscle sort of stronger and longer, so you're nice and strong in those lengthened positions.
And it's only body weight, and it's brutal. It's quite safe because it's just body weight.
It's body
weight,
and then as all S&C coaches like to do, they like progressive overload. So you can start to do it with weight. You can do drop and catch versions as well. So there's ways you can progress what you're doing with it as well.
Yeah. So with the implementation of like Nordic and maybe other exercises, are you seeing trackable results that the athletes are improving and managing injuries? What have you seen?
Well, the good thing is that now with a lot of the stuff in the gym, you're able to get actual numbers on what they're doing. So we use a a thing called the Nord board, which measures their force output in Newton. So you get to look at the symmetry between the sides. So that's a good objective measure with someone who's had a hamstring injury to compare the strength on the injured and non-injured side. So you can measure the force that way, and also in the gym there's a lot more use of force plates and things to measure sort of force output with all their strengthening work, and it comes in quite handy with your rehab as well when you're sort of measuring what sort of force they can produce and looking at, like I said, the asymmetries and how they compare to normative data as well.
That's really interesting. Is there any advice that you would give for, I guess, in someone who wants to become professional in AFL or any sport for that matter, from the ages like 15 onwards to 18, as a physio, what sort of things, like you talked about the Nordic, are there certain things that you'd recommend for them to be doing to help get them to an athletic base to be at that elite level?
Yeah, I think so. I think they've got to work on the basic sort of building blocks first. So a lot of it is sort of lumbo-pelvic and strength and control. So I think before you get too obsessed with lifting heavy weights and going crazy with that sort of stuff, you have to work on your strength and your control, sort of lower back, pelvis, hips, around that area. So that's where your power base and control base through there. So if you can't control how you're moving around your pelvis when you're sprinting, or you're lunging for a ball in tennis or whatever it is, you're losing so much force. So you might get big and strong in the more peripheral muscles, but you're leaking sort of force as you. So I think it's really important you work on your basic sort of building blocks sort of around that lumbo-pelvic area. No need to go heavy to start with. Build up from body weight sort of exercises, and then as you sort of control's getting better and your basic strength gets better, then you can concentrate more on your getting into heavier lifting and things like that. But
building that base and having that coordination around the hips to then push off and make your first step. I guess powerful and strong. That's so true, because when from my perspective as a coach, when I see players who maybe have a lot of hip mobility and can move quickly and change direction quickly, but it's not controlled and it's erratic, this is when you see like the arms and legs kind of being out of sync and like shoulder issues, because they're using like they're out of sync with their hips and their shoulders, and then they're using too much force in their shoulders.
So having mobility is a great thing, but it also means you've got to have good strength to control that mobility. So in the end, it's nice to have the range of movement and the mobility, but to utilise it well in a sporting environment, you have to have the strength and control to make the most of it.
Is that how you diagnose some people with that? Because some people are more hypermobile and some people are just more stiff.
Yes, yeah.
Do you look at the athlete and just try to diagnose what they need? So for someone that is more hypermobile, what sort of things would you do? And someone who's more stiff, how do you manage those two types, for example?
Yeah, well, someone hypermobile, you're going to work on all the muscles stabilising their joints and making sure you're getting nice and strong, sort of with the stabilising muscles, working on the control there. And then someone who's quite stiff, you might be doing more mobility exercise and stuff through trying to increase their range of mobility a little bit. So that's sort of, I think again that's one thing as football has become more professional rather than just a big one program fits all. That the big change, one of the big changes has been individualising programs to suit people and give them the best chance of performing at their best rather than just one size fits all. Yeah. That's so important. That's crucial. Is that something that wasn't happening in the past? Was it more just like one? Yeah, this is how it's done, and this is the way. Yes, that's definitely changed. The program was, your strength program was pretty much everyone does the same thing, and then they gradually changed. The young skinny guys would get more of a hypertrophy program, and then it's just kept evolving from there. Whereas now, we've got some strength coaches who put in huge hours tailoring programs to the individual, sort of in regard to both their body type, but also their injury history and things as well. Mm-hmm. You were involved at Geelong through their 3 premierships. That would have been an amazing time and a huge just like energy to be part of through that period.
Can you talk us through that period, what it was like, your role as a physio, and what made that Geelong Football Club at that time so successful?
Yeah, it was great to be a part of it. Having come from Richmond, we didn't enjoy a whole lot of success when I was playing. We had a couple of final series, a couple of prelim finals, but no more than that. So when I went down to Geelong, I finished playing. I had a year off, and I was actually travelled for a year, enjoyed myself, and I came back for a year, and then I got down to Geelong the year after. So that 2006, I think they knew they had a good list of players, but they didn't have a very successful year. They had a big review at the end of the year where they went through everything with a fine-tooth comb and made some big changes. And I think Bomber Thompson was the coach, that sort of told him he needed to change the way he did things, and they made some decent changes. But the thing was they had a good list of players there. And then in 2007, they didn't start the year well. I'm trying to recall it now. I reckon they might have won 2 out of their first 5 games, and then I can remember there was sort of a watershed moment after a match. They were all locked in the rooms. I was in there with them, and they just big, honest, open, frank discussion about things, and whether this was the catalyst for things turning around or not, it's hard to know. But after that, they barely lost a game for the rest of the year, and all of a sudden things just clicked.
Wow! So what was involved in that sort of conversation, if you can recall?
Yeah.
What happened behind closed doors that really shifted the gears to go like, hang on, we're a real shot here. We need to just believe and go to that next level.
Yeah, I think they was just saying we're good enough, but we've got to get things right on the field. We've got to probably be more professional. We've got to knuckle down, because we're at the moment where it's all going to slip by. We don't sort of get things sorted. So it was a bit of a line in the sand moment where they said we're sort of recognise they've got the ability there, but it's not happening. Okay, let's do what we need to make it happen, and it all just seemed to click.
Yeah.
Sort of after that.
Wow, that's kind of like the sports movies you see when that team is just not coming together, and they have that kind of massive, I guess, family moment where they all go, well, we need to buy in. We all need to buy in as a collective, and let's see what happens. There's no guarantees, but let's see what happens if we all buy in and do this as one unit.
Yeah, it was a bit like that, and then it was great to watch. Like, it was a good club to work for, because the brand of footy they played was fantastic. It was a really good, exciting brand of football. They were all natural footballers. I think that was a big part of the success. They weren't good athletes who had come in and been coached up to play footy. They were all just really good footballers. Most of them were really sort of hard, tough footballers, and all of a sudden, just the style of play clicked, and it was really good to watch and be a part of.
That's awesome. Were there anyone that stood out to you for different reasons at that time in the team? I
guess for different reasons. There was sort of Max Rook was like a bit of the talisman for the team. He was he was a character. He was sort of off on another planet, but he was just the hard man on the field. He was the one who'd throw himself where no one else would dare go, and the boys just loved him, and he'd do things in games that would just lift them, and so he was an important part of it. You had so my first year was Joel Selwood and Tom Hawkins' first year as well.
Wow.
Joel Selwood, you just see from the get-go, being the runner, I'd be out there taking messages, and he was out there, and he'd cross the line, and he was just in game mode. His eyes glazed over, and you're trying to give him a message, and you almost have to get into his face to get him. He was just that competitive and combative out there. He was just, went into his own little world, his own sort of. He was out there to battle and be a warrior out there. So, yeah.
That comes through. Wow, that guy puts his heart on his sleeve out there. He just throws his body. He's on another level like that.
Yes, yeah, it was. Yeah, he just hardness, and he was just super competitive.
So, what sort of things were you doing as a physio at that time at Geelong? What was your role? What were you implementing? How were you helping the players with their success to just keep coming back game after game?
It was good. So that was my first sort of run as a physio at an AFL club after I'd finished playing. So part of the thing was that transition from player to to working was all of a sudden you're like, okay, you had to get in your head, okay, I'm not the player, I'm not the important one anymore. I'm here to serve these blokes and get them out onto the field. So you had to sort of get in the right headspace and be change your mindset to be in that position. That
you would have been itching to get out there at times because you're still a young guy as a physio.
Yeah. Back then, I was still young and reasonably fit, and then doing rehab it was good because I could get out there and a lot of the rehab was kicking with the guys, and then the later stage rehab when they got competitive and stuff, I'd have to do competitive work. So it was probably quite good early on, actually. Speaking of Max Schrook, he was doing some rehab and we were doing it separately, and then the rest of the group was running past and we were doing a bit of stuff where he'd kick or whatever, and then we'd do some wrestling, and he was sort of the big tough guy, and I just happened to get we're doing this wrestling, and the next thing I sort of pinned him down and got him in a headlock. So it was a good way to win the group over sort of from an early stage there. But so it was good. I sort of worked with the players in rehab, and a huge amount of being a physio at a footy club is about the relationships you have with the players. So hands-on stuff, you can make a difference. You can help out a bit there, get them feeling better. But a huge part of it is just your relationship with them and talking things through and getting them in a headspace where they feel like they can go out and play, or again the headspace to do their rehab and be in a positive mindset doing it.
Yeah, that's really important for them just to trust you and feel like there's a space that they can just talk about things, especially when the injuries can get players quite down.
Yes.
They just want to be out there. They just want to play. Did you develop any real close relationships with any particular players in that team?
I guess there was some good guys I sort of got on well. Andrew Mackey's a Adelaide boy who you wouldn't meet a nicer bloke, so he'd come in for treatment just to have a chat as much as anything. So I got on well with him. Brad Oddens was there, who I'd actually played with at Richmond. So he's a quiet guy, but he's a fantastic footballer. Sort of one of the best players I've sort of seen. He unfortunately had a lot of injuries, but the good thing with him at finals time, he seemed to come out and play his best football. So
that's great.
So he was a good guy, and obviously Tom Hawkins and Selwood starting at the club at the same time as them. He sort of got on well with those boys.
What a cool experience for you just to go from playing to then straight into a super successful team like that. You would have learned so much. So where did that lead you from there? Where did you go after your Geelong experience?
So I was at Geelong for the 6 years, and I just had three premierships, which was great experience actually. Being there grand final day and being the runner, it's nothing like playing, but at least I got to run out on the ground and
100,000.
Yeah, be out there, sort of running out there and trying to make sure I didn't give any 50-metre penalties away, and so that was a real buzz being actually a part of it. Not the same as playing, but just being a part of it was fantastic. And then so Bomber Thompson was coaching, and then Chris Scott came in as coach, and he had a premiership in his first year. I think second year they dropped down. So at Geelong it was sort of a bit of a failure of a year. They were down to fourth or something, and he wanted to make a few changes. So I finished up. I finished up at Geelong, and I was looking sort of what to do next. And I was weighing a few things up, and then a job came up with the Crows, which was a similar sort of job, and my wife's from Adelaide, so I applied for that job and got the job, and got the family on the road and came across.
Yeah, okay. So you've been here
10 years, I think it's now, just over 10 years.
Mm-hmm. And you helped Tex Walker in 2013, so he tore his ACL.
Yep.
I remember the footage, horrific landing, right, off a mark.
Yeah, he came down, hyperextended his knee, and so he did ACL, and then he damaged sort of the posterolateral corner of his knee. So it was a nasty one. But like with a lot of joint injuries, the big thing is whether you have joint surface, articular surface damage, which he didn't, which is always a positive.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the process with Tex? How did you help him manage that ACL injury? Because he's come back and he's playing. That's 10 years later, and he's been playing really well. Yeah,
the big thing is the first thing the surgeon has to do a good job. So the surgeon, you're on a hiding to nothing if the surgery is not good. So the surgeon did a great job, and then he because of the nature of the injury, he was quite restricted in what he could do for the first couple of months. And then we're just back into it, just building that mobility, building the strength, and then you gradually move into higher level activities. And but it's all generally it starts in the gym, and then the stuff on the ground follows after that. Once you've got the strength and the control, then you can start to build up what you're doing on the ground. With him, we went over to the States for a few weeks to see Bill Knowles, who's sort of a bit of a knee rehab guru over there. And that was much of a change of scene, a different voice. And so I went across with Tex, and his mum went across as well. So we
that's awesome.
Yeah, so we all met up in New York, and then the training was down in Philadelphia. So that was that was good, and it was just a nice break, sort of change up from me, training at the club and working with Tex as well. You got to it's a bit of give and take. He's a bit of a lad Tex, so you got to give him a bit of a blowout here and there, and just keep him in the right headspace to work on with his rehab. So.
So what did you learn from this? I guess the knee guru in the States. What sort of things were you guys doing over there?
He does. So he's not into sort of heavy weights as such. He's sort of a lot into how they're moving, building confidence. Just the way his strength training is quite different. He sort of he's not into your typical gym work, lifting heavy weights. So I think there's pros and cons to what he does, but it was good as far as working on Tex's movement patterns and getting him ready. We were transitioning into running, so he sort of did some good quality work in the gym with him, and then he was able to transition into some striding and change of direction work as well at that stage. So it was a good sort of little period to go and to make that transition from working in the gym to doing stuff on field. And a big thing with this guy, he's I don't know, probably stereotypical American. He's quite loud. He's upbeat. He's full on. He's quite intense. So as far as working with them and building their confidence, he's really good.
Yeah, okay. Tex would have loved that.
I think to start with, he was a bit unsure, but no, he loved it. He had a good time.
Yeah, fantastic. You talked about the movement patterns. Is that a big part as to why Tex or other athletes have stayed injury-free? Because you can fix an injury, but if you don't address the movement patterns and the dysfunction in the movement, the injuries are just going to come back at some point.
Yeah.
So is that part of the protocol for you in this case with Tex to fix a movement patterns, and how do you address that, and what sort of things do you do?
Yeah, it's an important part because they say one of the big things with Bill Knowles in America, you've injured your knee, but it's not a knee injury. It's sort of a whole body and a head injury. You injure a joint, and then all your movement patterns tend to change, but it's all centrally controlled sort of issues. So you're making a mistake with your rehab if you're concentrating purely on the knee and just the quads. It's all about the inhibition stuff is a centrally sort of controlled issue. So it's getting the brain, central nervous system, sort of firing back in the way you want it to in the appropriate way. So that's what a lot of it's about. You do your local work around the area, but it's retraining the brain, because you will naturally change your movement patterns to try to protect the area. So it's all about trying to just retrain them to move properly, and seeing rehab as an opportunity rather than just getting back from that injury to in the end become a better athlete and a more resilient athlete as well. So
is it that mindset that separates the athlete from really doing better after an injury, to go, well, hang on, I've got an opportunity here to really solve some of the issues that I've had in my movement patterns and injuries and become better from here, rather than just protocol, get back as fast as I can and play? Yeah,
that's a huge part of rehab, especially long-term injury, as seeing it as an opportunity. So some people, like you say, it's just, okay, I'll rehab this, get back ASAP, and but rehab isn't like a long-term. Everyone's got deficiencies they need to work on, so it's an opportunity to not only work on getting that injury right, but then also becoming, if you lack strength or muscle bulk, to do some work in the gym to get a bit bigger and stronger. If you lack speed or drive from stoppages to work on your acceleration and things like that. So I think that's a key to rehab well, is one, the person taking the rehab to identify things to work on, and then also the athlete to actually have the mindset to see it as an opportunity to become a better footballer or whatever sport they're playing.
Yeah. Is there enough time in a season to do that? Like, do you guys find windows to actually work on this stuff while trying to compete? Because it's a pretty grueling season that you guys have.
It's pretty tough, and that's one reason why probably being in rehab is a much better opportunity, because and the other thing with football is you've got 40 odd players on the list. So if you're doing some speed work at the start of training or whatever, it's hard to get that individual attention. Whereas if you're in rehab, you tend to get that one-on-one training. So all of a sudden, the coaching you're getting is much better than what you can get as part of the team. So,
do you prefer that? Do you prefer working with one-on-one and really developing that relationship and building those movement patterns?
Yeah, that's a good thing. Sort of being sort of the physio and working in rehab, you're generally working with hopefully only a few players at a time. It gets hard when you get a dozen or so injured, but hopefully you've only got a few long-term injuries and you're able to spend some quality time with them. And it is, again, like I said before, you develop a relationship with them, and then the highlight in the end is when this is what why you enjoy doing it, because in the end you see them get out there and hopefully playing good football and staying out there and not getting injured again.
What's it like at the Crows? I mean, a few tough years, off-field dramas, culture shifting, but from my observations, I'm not any expert at all, and I don't follow footy like extremely closely, but just from what I've seen, observing a little bit and seeing the on-field performance, I've seen a bit of a shift in the Crows where you can see like the fire in the belly really starting to come back, and there's the team really coming together, and there's a real fight and desire, which was maybe lacking a little bit in recent years. What's the messages at the footy club, I guess, across the board, and on your end, how is the culture shifting? And is that true, the observation that I'm seeing?
Yeah, I guess the thing you see is the belief the players have. So in the past few years, they're probably they want to do well and they're trying hard, but they don't actually have the belief and the confidence that they can do it. Whereas I think now there's genuine belief that they're good players, they're a good team, and they can achieve things. So I think that's a big part of just they've developed, and they've got the players in there who are confident, or they're building their confidence to have the self-belief that they can compete with the better team. So that's a big part of it. And then it's also then once you've got the players who you think can do it, then developing the style of play that's going to be successful as well. So I think at the moment we're sort of the style of play when some of these good games we've had this year, where it's been a really good brand of footy where defensively it's been good, but then also the big thing, we've got the attacking power now to hurt teams on the scoreboard as well.
Yeah, I just want to shift gears here a little bit. So your brother Andrew, he played at Richmond with you as well. Do you have any other siblings? Yeah,
and I've got an older brother who so he went to Collingwood.
Oh wow! Okay.
So he played under 19s there, and he's a good footballer. He won under 19s best and fairest there, and then played a bit of reserves, and then he just got a phone call one night and said, "You're not required anymore," and got the boot and went down and played with Sandringham, who were in like the VFA, VFL.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I mean, what was it like having such a competitive footy family? Was it just super kicking the ball all the time, cricket, footy, tennis?
Yeah, it was a great sort of lifestyle growing up with sort of the two brothers, and we lived probably in the outer suburbs of Melbourne, and with a lot of other boys similar age in the neighbourhood. So it was, come home from school, head out the front in winter, you're kicking the footy and having goal kicking comps between the telegraph pole and the trees and whatever else, and then in summer it's out sort of playing cricket on the street or getting the tennis rackets out and riding up to the local tennis courts. So it was good. It was a really active sort of childhood, but pretty competitive as well, which is a good thing.
Yeah, did that drive you guys to just really get to the top or get to the level that you got to as an AFL athlete?
I Yeah, probably. I think we just all love sport, and then when and you just want to sort of get as high as you can in with what you're doing. So we love footy, so you sort of dream of making it to the top level, playing or VFL, AFL as it became. So yeah, that was you got no idea what's going to happen, but as a kid, like lots of kids, that was your favourite sport. So you thought it'd be great to play at the top level.
Yeah, for sure. So you got 4 kids. And do you try to instill that with your kids in terms of just like getting outside, hitting a ball, kicking a ball? I mean, now it's a completely different world. And what we're seeing with the families that we work with closely in the tennis space is just no one's really doing these fundamental, just kicking, throwing, and just getting out and getting on the bike. And
I feel like a dinosaur. I'm always saying to kids, back when I was your age, we'd come home from school and we'd go outside and play with our mates. Why don't you go out and ride to someone's house or do this or that? So yeah, times have changed. Obviously, phones, laptops are a real lure for kids to spend time on them rather than getting outside. And the other big thing is now it's a lot more about organised sport rather than just that going out and catching up with people and just making up your own games and doing this and doing that. Whereas most of the sport the kids are playing these days, they're going to tennis lessons, they're going to footy training, they're going to cricket training. So which is a shame. I think it was a good way to grow up. Just be able to go out and go and knock on your mate's back door and say let's go out and kick the footy or do this or that. So
yeah, I kind of wish it was a little bit more like that. And yeah, with the technology changes, I just don't see it kind of shifting back like that. It's really tricky.
Yes.
How do you navigate that balance as a father, like without being too, I guess, pushy and hard on them? Do you just take technology away? Do you just try to get them outside and say, no phones, no laptops, let's go out, let's do something?
Yeah. Got to, just at times you do have to just take it off and okay, that's enough. Out you go and kick them out the back door. And the one thing, lucky there's four siblings, so they can normally go out and play, and they're all sort of getting old enough now where the younger ones can hit the tennis ball, kick the football, right, to keep the older ones occupied as well. So yeah, it's finding that balance. Obviously you have to let them use their phones and things like that to some degree, but yeah, there's definitely times where you have to push them out and get them outside, get them active and get them doing things.
Yeah, for sure. Once they're out there though, are they just loving it? Is it just getting them out there, but once they're there, it's sweet?
Yes, yeah, most of the time. Like it's even like taking them going off for a hike or something. The whinging and moaning is ridiculous. But I took the 2 younger ones to Moriata Falls the other week, and they were just bitching and carrying on and we got there and they had the best time. Like there's sort of there'd been a bit of rain, so they're going over the stepping stones trying to get through the little river without getting wet, and they had a great time and looking for koalas, and then we get to the waterfall and that was flowing, so it was all beautiful. They had a great time, but yeah, often the carry on to get them there is a bit much. But most of the time it's worthwhile sort of pushing them a bit to get outside and do things, and yeah, it's generally worthwhile. Yeah.
Is that something that you and your wife try to do a lot of, just to push them to do a lot more of that and just to be a bit firmer in that way?
Yeah, sometimes, you have to be firmer than you'd like sometimes, and sometimes nag more than you'd like to, but I think you have to. If you just leave them to sit on their phone or laptop for really long periods, it doesn't do anyone much good.
No, yeah. I think that's, you don't want to be their friend. I mean, I look back at my upbringing and I didn't appreciate how my dad especially was hard on me to do these, and it wasn't even hard on me, he was just trying to get me out and do things.
Yes.
But obviously now at the age I am, I can actually look back and reflect and go, hang on a minute, that was actually really important. And I'm grateful that he did that, because I needed that to get out and do the things. And it's made me who I am now. And I look back and go, wow, that being a dad and being a family man is very hard, and you can't just be their friends.
Yes, well, you It's hard, but you know that in the end they're going to appreciate it. But when they're kids, they they just take it for granted. And you've got to soak it up. But you hope one day they'll come up and say, "Oh, thanks, Dad, for making me go outside, making me exercise, making me do whatever,
making me be a functional, healthy human being."
Yes,
thanks, Dad. Yeah. So you're coaching one of your sons, or a couple of your sons' footy team?
Yeah. So I coach the elder son. I coached his team for a year. I've often been assistant coach, which is a nice, easy gig. But I thought I'd better take the head job for a bit. So I coached him. And then I'm coaching the younger son, the second year, so I'm coaching him. So that's going all right there. They 2 years will probably do me, and then I'm not sure about coaching the girls or not. But no, it's good to you take them out there, and then you can't just rely on everyone else to do all the work. So I think you've got to volunteer your own time at some stage when they're at the community club. So
volunteering is a dying art.
Yes, So no, but I think you've got to try to help out. Otherwise, it gets left to too few. So you do your bit, and I'm quite enjoying the coaching.
Yeah, what's that like for you? Just kind of step into that role, different as a player, different as a physio again.
It's very.
Do you enjoy it?
Yeah, most of the time I do. The kids are good. You get a mixed bunch of kids, so it's funny just seeing how they all operate and trying to get them all out there working together and enjoying their footy. And it's all. I always say to them, the first thing they've got to enjoy it and have fun. Like it's under 12, so enjoy it and have fun. But you've got to try to get them better as individuals, and then try to get them better as a team. Because in the end, football's a team sport. As Phil Walsh was sort of just all over it when he was coaching at the Crows for the bit there. It's just all about the team. So just trying to instill in the kids, you're there to help each other. It's not just all about yourself. Yeah,
for sure. Do you how do you go with helping them just, I guess, appreciate the hard work element? Because different generation, a lot of kids are, I guess, through just their experience, not as willing to work as hard and want things a little bit easier because they're just used to getting so many things easily. How do you navigate that to kind of pull to press a little bit, but then
it's hard.
You can't be as hard as what you were
when
you guys were playing.
Or even sometimes you can't be as hard maybe as you are with your kids, with other kids. But it's finding that balance. I was speaking to my brother the other day and we were laughing because his boys had just started playing footy in Melbourne and they had a really cold, wet day, and he was laughing about how the kids were, struggling to cope. But as well as things, it's one of those things, training or games where it's freezing cold and wet. How hard do you push them? But I'm quite happy just to push the envelope a little bit like that. So I was, at training, I remember one night last year it was freezing cold and wet, and we sort of, some of the kids are looking, okay, it's raining, we should probably not train here. So you get them. We went to them off for a little run. All of a sudden, you're just watching how all the different kids cope. So you got some who are loving it, and you got others who are just gritting their teeth and trying. And then you got a few who are crying and carrying on. But it's it's footy. It's a winter sport. You okay, boys. Toughen up. You're not inside on your laptop now. Let's take it on board. We're only out here. We'll be out here for half an hour. So it's one of those. It's tricky, sort of. How much do you push? I think push the kids, but I think that's part of it. You're playing sport. It's a competitive sport. It's a physical sport. There's you've got to be prepared to compete, and sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. You be humble in defeat, be a gracious loser. They're really important things. And then just a bit of physical resilience, which that's a hard one these days, where you kids getting knocked and whatever else, and if you get it wrong and they've actually injured themselves badly, and you're telling them to jump up, get on with it, you can get in a bit of trouble. But it's all about sports, sort of they're developing that it's a buzzword, resilience, but it's being able to cope with some losses, to be able to cope with a few knocks where you get a bit of a bruise, you get this, but you bounce up and you get on with things.
It must be interesting for you to teach like resilience when you growing up. Even when I was growing up, it was just a natural thing of it's just part of it. Just get up and
get
go
on with it,
and just don't stop.
Yeah, it's but everyone's different, and all the kids are, either they've been raised differently. So some come from the school of hard knocks where it's get on with it, and others it's they're taken into mum's arms very quickly. So but the footy training, the footy fields are a good environment just to teach them. There's about the winning and losing, and about dealing with both sort of physical and mental things, and being able to cope with and get on with things.
Absolutely. And I think you're the man to teach that with the wealth of experience. And one thing I'm hearing through this conversation is just the value of hard work, being super persistent, and also I feel like you've had a lot of success with your career through Geelong, at Adelaide, and now giving back to the community with through your kids and being a coach. And I just feel like you've got so much to offer through your experience, but at the same time, you're someone that is just grounded and humble and down to earth, which I think is really important aspect to someone who has had a lot of success or done good things. Because it's just, I guess I find it hard when people have these successes and then you can't even talk to them, and then they're on basically another planet. So first of all, thank you so much for making the time. I do appreciate it. We all appreciate it here through ATA, the whole team, because we're only starting out. It's only pretty fresh for us, and I know you're a busy man, so thank you so much. I feel like you've given us so much value in all different aspects, and wish you nothing but the best for family life moving forward.
Yeah, no worries. Thanks for having me, and hopefully your listeners get something out of it. I haven't put them all to sleep.
No, not at all. Absolutely loved it. Thanks a lot, Duncan.
No worries, Luke.
Cheers.
Thank you.